is one of the most fickle and malleable genres of all time. In a lot of aspects, it's very similar to comedy, as both are trying to get an extreme reaction, however, they're both very subjective. Something one person finds funny might not be funny to someone else, and the same goes for horror. However, one thing that's nearly inarguable when it comes to horror is that video games are the best medium for it. The interactivity offers a new layer to all of the horror aspects. However, even in horror games, you need moments of cinematics. Today, I wanted to talk about my favorite moments of a couple of different horror games, moments that I feel defined the game itself. Quick note that all of these are my opinions and are purely subjective, so if you disagree and think that a different moment should have gotten the spotlight, be sure to let me know your opinion down below. Just try to keep it civil. Alright, without any further ado, I think it's time we get to my first pick. Doki Literature Club is personally one of my favorite pieces of horror media of all time. It perfectly blends together so many types of horror and disguises it all under this immaculately made, overly cutesy dating sim. Before I show off my favorite moment from the game, I'll be giving a recap for the game up to the moment I chose, just as a common courtesy for anyone who may need it. Also, I will be doing this for every segment. The game opens up with you walking to school before being chased down by your childhood best friend, Sayori. She presses you about joining a club this school year as she doesn't want us to become a NEET, which stands for Not in Education, Employment, or Training. So we reluctantly agree to check out a few clubs, and at the end of the day, she approaches us and asks us to join her club, the Literature Club, even though neither of us have any interest in literature. However, she already did promise a new member, and there were cupcakes made for the occasion. So we agree to just pick up a cupcake and then go back home. However, our character runs into a predicament, as the club is filled with incredibly cute girls. His words, not mine, but I do happen to agree. There's of course Sayori. She's a very carefree girl and she's goofy and nice to everyone. She's been friends with the main character since they were kids and they're very close, with the MC often helping her with a lot of things, including whatever this is. Man, I gotta be careful. This channel's supposed to be somewhat family-friendly, but, I can't say I'm not enjoying this. Also, she just so happens to be the best girl, and I will die on that hill. After Sayori, there's Natsuki. She fits the tsundere archetype, which, if you didn't know, basically means she hides her affection through layers of toughness and meanness. She really does end up liking the MC, however she pretends not to. She's also overly cutesy with everything she does, as she's the one that made the cupcakes, and she decorated them to look like little cats. After Natsuki is Yuri. She's very shy and timid, and she also really ends up liking the MC, though she can sometimes come off as a little performative, as she often fights with Natsuki over different writing styles. However, Natsuki actually cooks her with this comment. Honestly, she probably shouldn't show her face around these parts ever again. Finally, there's Monica. She's the oddball of the group. She doesn't really have anything that makes her unique. We're just told that she's the class star, as she's beautiful, smart, and athletic. Basically, every dude's dream. Except for mine, though. Like I said, Sayori's way better. As the days go by, we get more comfortable with our fellow members, and we start sharing poems with each other. I'll skip ahead a bit to the next truly relevant moments. Later in the week, we gather for a meeting. However, Sayori's not there, as she wasn't feeling well and had to go home early. However, she has been acting weird lately, and has been avoiding the MC all day. So we trudge on without her and discuss a new important matter, how we're going to prepare for the school festival. Natsuki will of course be making the cupcakes, Monica and Sayori will be working together to design and print out pamphlets, and Yuri will be making some decorations. We can choose to help either Natsuki or Yuri, however the choice doesn't matter that much. Before the girl of our choice comes over to visit, we decide to visit Sayori to check on her. However, she doesn't run down to greet us as usual, and we end up having to barge into her room. We awkwardly talk to her for a bit, and she seems a bit out of character, being more quiet and reserved. We finally ask her what's been wrong, and she gets a bit upset, asking why things can't be as they always have been. She feels as though she's pushed us away because she opened up to us, and now she feels bad for making us worry. She says all of these really sad things in a very bubbly way. It's kind of weird. We press her some more, asking what's changed to make her like this. However, she explains that nothing has changed about her. We've just started noticing it for the first time. She explains how she's had really bad depression her whole life, often not being able to find a reason to get out of bed. She feels worthless, and that's why she tries so hard to make others happy, because she feels like a blight on this earth, and she doesn't want others to worry about her. It's a really sad scene, and it hits me like a truck every single time. After she spills her heart out to us, though, we work with our girl of choice and end up having fun together, almost forgetting about what we just went through. After the day's over and we bid farewell, the girl we chose gets really close and we share a bit of a flirty moment. However, she quickly jumps back when we notice that Sayori is close by. The girl quickly runs away, embarrassed, and Sayori claims to be really happy that we're getting to be such close friends with the other members, but it's clear that she doesn't mean it as she starts to cry. She wants to be happy, but she feels like her heart is splitting in half, and she's worried that she likes us more than we like her. So we squeeze her hand and we tell her that we love her. We tell her we'll always be there for her, and we hug. However, even now, she's still sad, even though she thought this would be the happiest moment of her life, but we tell her that we'll be here with her forever, and we'll do whatever it takes to make her happier, and we're excited to start officially being a couple. However, the day of the festival, she's not walking with us, and she won't answer her phone, but for some reason the MC decides just not to check on her. We end up being the first of the club meeting, other than Monica, that is. We tell her about how Sayori was late today, and we call her a dummy before quickly remembering what she told us yesterday. Monica says we should take some responsibility for her, and she somehow knows all about our exchange yesterday, and she says how we kind of left her hanging this morning. However, she quickly changes the subject and invites us to check out the pamphlets, and when we do, we find that Sayori's poem is different. It's just repeating the words, "get out of my head," over and over again, before a bit of a change at the end. Get out of my head before I do what I know is best for you. Get out of my head before I listen to everything she said to me. Get out of my head before I show you how much I love you. Get out of my head before I finish writing this poem. But a poem is never actually finished. It just stops moving. We finally realize something is deeply wrong, and we rush over to see Sayori. We decide to barge straight into her room, as she's left us with no choice. We gently open the door, but are met with a gruesome sight. This scene is permanently engraved into my mind. It's terrifying and it's depressing. When the main character is realizing that there's now nothing he can do, and the change in music just puts a pit in my stomach every single time. But with this scene also comes a realization that's really important in the second and third act of the game. Sayori earlier mentioned something about how Monica was right, and in the poem she threatens to listen to what she said to her. Also, remember what Monica says right before we visit her? She says we left her hanging this morning. It's clear that Monica is the one truly responsible, and it's disgusting, and it's only made worse because the main character blames himself for this. It's why I appreciate this game so much. It's not scared to approach these truly dark and disturbing topics, and it does it in a truly terrifying way. This game truly makes me feel ways that no other piece of media has ever been able to replicate. It also does such a great job of humanizing the characters, which makes scenes like this hit so much harder. And that's only the first act of the game. Later on, it uses a lot of fourth wall breaking elements, where it turns out that Monica has been in control of everything, and the reason she made Sayori take her own life, and eventually do the same for Yuri, which, quick aside, is also just as terrifying and depressing of a scene, is because she's self-aware and knows she's in a video game, and she really wants to connect to the player beyond the screen, because we're the only one who she can truly relate to and talk to. She basically deletes everything else in the world to ensure that she's the only one that we can talk to, as in the regular game, she's doomed to not be able to be interacted with. Anyway, that was probably the most depressing thing I've ever talked about on my channel, so why don't we quickly move on to the next game? Miside, or Miside, I'm not really sure, is a very similar game to Doki Doki, in the vein that it's disguised under the veil of a cute anime girl, but it is actually very terrifying. Our main character loves playing this little game where we help take care of a cute anime girl named Mita, and she loves and appreciates us so much that she literally brings us into the game to be with her. She wants us to stay forever with her because she loves us, however our main character is kind of worried like an idiot. Bro just got put into the best situation possible for a man to be put in. However, he's all like, oh, but what about my life back home? Like it's stupid. Gosh, why couldn't it be me? Why couldn't it be me? However, I'll give him a pass, because it does turn out something is wrong. In the middle of playing a little game with her, we suddenly hear noises coming from her closet, so we go to check it. However, she's apprehensive, and she keeps coming up with excuses for us not to open it. However, we keep insisting, and she suddenly snaps and disappears. There's actually another Mita locked in the basement, and I'll do a very abridged recap of events, because this is a very confusing plot. So we meet this Mita, and she reveals that the Mita we met is evil, go figure, and we agree to team up with her to help get rid of this evil Mita. We meet a ton of different Mitas along the way. There's Cappy, who's a Mita with a cap, and she was originally in on the plane with the long hair Mita, however she got killed, and when she respawned, her memory got wiped. There's this small, monster-like Mita who was abused by her previous player, and it's honestly really sad because she begs us to stay, however, we can't. There's this tiny chibi Mita who helps us make a key. There's this short hair Mita who tells us about the different versions of the games with the different Mitas. There's Sleepy Mita who's, well, always sleeping. And there's even a 2D Mita, and we have to interact with her with a little dating sim-like segment. It's actually really neat. I'm not gonna recap everything, though. It's a really long game, so let's just go ahead and skip to my scene of choice. We're finally getting close to putting an end to the evil Mita, however she suddenly gets the upper hand and basically traps us in a corner. She asks us again to stay with her, but we keep arguing, so she knocks us out with a bat. She asks us why we so desperately want to run away, as the real world is nothing but a nightmare, and she asks us to take a closer look. We wake back up in our real room from the beginning, and we get up from bed, do some coding on our computer, and go back to sleep. Then we do it again, and again, before Mita suddenly grabs us, and our room is now marked up. However, we go back to work anyway, and now we're in a third-person view, and we go to sit at our computer, only to be met by another view of ourselves. And we do it again and again before Mita comes back, asking us why we want to be stuck here in the real world. She just wants us to stay with her, and we press her on the other Mitas that she's killed, but she says how they're just pale imitations of her. So we zoom out again and again until we're back in our first-person view, and she comes out of the screen and asks us once again to stay with her. This scene is just so cool to me. The crazy Inception stuff is just so amazing, and the exploration into the topic of the mundanity of modern life is very interesting to me. It's depressing in a way, and in some ways you can sympathize with Mita, as she feels that she's truly alone, being self-aware and all, very similar to Monica from Doki Doki in that regard. I just think it's a real neat scene. It's my favorite from the game, however it was a tough choice, as there are a lot of great moments in this game, and there's also a lot more blood and guts horror if you're into that. I urge you to check out the game for yourself, since my small little recap doesn't do it justice. Alright, we gotta move on to the next game, though. Five Nights at Freddy's is truly a series that needs no introduction. It's one of the best examples of indie horror, however, it has kind of fallen off in recent years. Security Breach was a glitchy mess that had a lot of weird lore implications, and there's been so much supplementary media that adds a ton of weird lore and stories, and overall, it's just kind of a mess right now. However, I don't think I could ever hate it. I still follow the series as closely as I can, to an extent. However, I do think those first 7 games, and the FNAF world, I guess, were truly the pinnacle of the series, and they will never be topped. But I think the one thing nearly everyone can agree on was that FNAF 6, or Pizzeria Simulator, could have been a perfect end to the series. The game has you bring together all the spirits in their animatronic forms into this facade of a pizzeria, and your boss, Henry, who was also one of the founders of Freddy Fazbear's, with the other being William Afton, who was the purple guy, also known as the man behind the slaughter. Anyway, you've got the spirits of the original kids alongside William Afton and his family, including yourself, as it's implied that you're his son, all into this one room, and it just seems that something bad is about to happen. However, just as it seems that you're about to get killed, Henry cuts in and delivers this immaculate monologue.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace and perhaps more waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms the way you lifted others into yours. And then what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest for you and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
Define aura farming. You can't without this scene. This was the original aura farmer. It's crazy to think that this game came out nearly 10 years ago. It feels like just yesterday I watched Dan TDM play it. I think this is truly one of the greatest scenes in an indie horror game of all time. Anyway, those are some of my picks for some of my favorite moments in horror games. I could have talked about a lot more, but I need to get this video out soon, and I'm not even sure how you guys are going to like this video, so I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. However, if you guys did enjoy this, please make sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe if you want to see more, and if you'd like to see a part 2 to this, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, and as always, I've been Lopilot Levi, you've been a great viewer, and I'm off. See ya.